My name is Vivian Cross. I'm 25 years old. If you had met me just a week ago, you would have seen a woman who believed she had it all figured out, a steady career in software design, a cozy apartment I worked hard to afford, and a boyfriend I thought I would one day marry. His name was Ethan. For 2 years, Ethan was my world. He had this boyish grin that could melt away a bad day, and for a while, I thought his presence in my life was fate. 8 months ago, he moved into my apartment. It felt like the natural next step. He promised he'd start saving for the future, for our future. So I covered the rent, the utilities, the groceries. I didn't mind. I told myself it was temporary. But lately, something had shifted. Ethan was often working late, though he never had much to show for it. His phone, once left carelessly on the coffee table, became an extension of his hand, always face down, always password locked. I tried to shake the unease off, tried to remind myself that love means trust. Then came the message, a simple vibration on my phone while I was sautéing vegetables for dinner. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, smiling, because I thought it would be Ethan telling me he was finally on his way home. Instead, I read, "Staying at Lara's tonight. Don't wait up." Lara, his coworker. The same Lara whose Instagram photos he liked at 2 in the morning. The same Lara who laughed a little too much at his jokes during office parties. My pulse slowed to a crawl. My first instinct was disbelief. Maybe it was work-related, maybe innocent. But my second instinct, the one that whispered from deep in my chest, told me the truth. He had chosen. I typed back with trembling fingers, "Thanks for letting me know." That was it. No confrontation, no theatrics, just 7 words that sealed his fate. I stood there in my kitchen, staring at the skillet on the stove, the vegetables slowly charring, smoke curling upward. It felt like a scene from someone else's life. My chest should have been burning, but instead there was a hollow calm. I remembered something my father told me once back when I was 17 and crying over my first heartbreak. He'd placed a firm hand on my shoulder and said, "A man who hides his phone is already gone in spirit. Don't beg someone to stay when they've already left you." Back then I had rolled my eyes, but now his words felt like prophecy. I turned off the stove, the room filled with the faint, bitter scent of burnt onions, and set down the spatula. The weight of betrayal pressed against me, but beneath it, another feeling bloomed, cold, precise, almost surgical. Resolve. If Ethan wanted Lara's bed, then that's where he could stay. Permanently. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I reached for the first empty cardboard box I kept from moving. Day placed it on the bed we once shared and began to pack, one neat fold at a time. The first shirt I folded was his favorite, an old gray hoodie worn soft from years of use. I remembered the night he draped it over my shoulders after our very first date when the rain caught us off guard. For a moment, my fingers lingered on the fabric. The memory stung like lemon on a paper cut. Then I pressed the hoodie flat, placed it in the box, and closed the lid. I wasn't just packing clothes, I was dismantling a life. 1 box became 2, then 3. The rhythmic motions soothed me in a strange way, shirt fold stacked close. Like every crease smoothed out was another corner of my heart being ironed free from him. His cologne bottles lined the dresser, little glass monuments of lies. Into bubble wrap they went. His toothbrush, his razor, the half-used bottle of aftershave he swore by all, tucked neatly into a toiletry bag. I even wound the cord of his electric razor carefully, as if my precision might disguise the fury, fueling each action. By midnight, I had stripped the room bare of him. 8 boxes, 2 suitcases, his shoes, ties, and even the silly mug he claimed his grandmother gave him, but actually bought from IKEA. Nothing of Ethan remained, not even the pillowcase he used. I folded it neatly, placed it on top of the final suitcase, and stood back. The apartment looked different without his clutter. Cleaner, lighter. I glanced at the clock, 10:15 p.m. The decision formed in my mind like a lightning strike. I wasn't going to let these boxes collect dust. They belonged where Ethan chose to be. I loaded the car. Trip after trip down the stairs, muscles aching, breath quickening. Each thud of the trunk closing felt like punctuation at the end of a sentence. This is over. By 10:45, the car was full. By 11, however, I was driving across town with headlights slicing through the night. Lara's apartment complex loomed ahead. Modern brick walls, manicured hedges, the kind of place where people pretended they had it together. I remembered the building well. Ethan had once asked me to drop him off there for a team meeting. As fate would have it, someone was leaving just as I pulled up. The door swung open. I slipped inside, hauling the first suitcase up to the 3rd floor. Music thumped faintly from behind one of the doors. Laughter. A woman's laugh higher than mine. I didn't linger. Instead, I stacked every box, suitcase, and bag neatly against the doorframe. 8 boxes. 2 suitcases, a shrine of betrayal. On the very top, I placed a single folded note. Ethan's belongings, he's yours now, Vivian. I snapped a photo on my phone, not for spite, but for proof. Proof for myself that I had really done it. As I walked away, my heart didn't race. It slowed, calmer with each step. By the time I slid into the driver's seat, the silence inside me was almost frightening. At 11:30, I was home again. By midnight, a locksmith was changing the locks. $180, worth every penny. I updated the door code, deleted Ethan from my Netflix, Spotify, gym membership, canceled the emergency credit card he used to swipe daily at Starbucks. When all was done, I poured myself a glass of red wine, sat on the sofa, and pressed play on a movie. At 11:47 p.m., the first call came. Ethan. At 11:49, the second. By midnight, texts began pouring in. I placed the phone face down, let it buzz itself into exhaustion. Across the room, the boxes he once called home were now neatly stacked outside someone else's door. And for the first time in weeks, I felt free. By 12:30 a.m., the buzzing hadn't stopped. My phone lit up like a fire alarm, calls, texts, voicemails, stacking one over another. Vivian, what is this? Where are my things? This isn't funny. Answer me. I didn't. At 1 a.m., the doorbell rang. Then fists hammered against the door, rattling the frame. Ethan's voice echoed through the hallway, angry and desperate. Viv, open the damn door. You're being insane. I leaned against the wall, arms folded, listening. My neighbors stirred. Lights flicked on through the peephole. A petty part of me considered letting him shout until the whole building learned what kind of man he really was. Instead, I texted him once. You chose to stay at Lara's. I simply helped you move. At 3:00 a.m., a different number appeared on my screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. Vivian, it's me. Ethan's voice cracked. You have to listen. Nothing happened, I swear. Nothing happened, I asked softly. Then why Lara's couch? Why her apartment and not your own? It was one night. For work, he stammered. For work, I echoed, a bitter laugh escaping. Hotels exist for work, Ethan. Don't insult me. There was a pause, then his tone shifted. Pleading. Where am I supposed to go now? I closed my eyes, the wine from earlier still warm in my veins. Where you stayed last night. Seems like the obvious answer. The silence that followed was heavier than shouting. I ended the call before he could speak again. By morning, my landlord called. Vivian, just confirming you changed the locks last night. Yes, he chuckled. Figured. Your boyfriend showed up at my office, claiming it was all a mistake, demanding a spare key. Ex-boyfriend, I corrected. He swore he was on the lease. He's not, never has been. Good to know, the landlord said, amusement in his tone. Don't worry, I'll handle it. But Ethan wasn't finished. By 9:00 a.m., the flying monkeys descended his mother Darlene, the queen bee, of misplaced loyalty. My phone rang, her name flashing. Against my instincts, I answered. How dare you throw my son out onto the street, she snapped. Darlene, your son texted me that he was staying at another woman's house. I helped him make it permanent. He made one mistake, she hissed. No, he made a choice. I respected it. You're legally obligated to give him 30 days. Wrong. He never paid rent, never signed the lease. He was a guest. Guests don't get 30 days. You're heartless. No, Darlene. I'm finally done being his safety net. She hung up on me, but not before I caught the wavering edge in her voice, as if deep down she knew exactly who her son was. When I set my phone down, I noticed something unexpected. My hands weren't shaking. For the first time in months, I felt steady. Of course I knew Ethan wouldn't let go easily. Men like him never did. And as the sun rose higher, I sensed it in my gut. This was only the beginning. By noon, my phone was vibrating again, this time from an unknown number. I let it ring out, but curiosity got the better of me when it came back a second time. Vivian. The voice was sharp, male, angry. This is Lara's boyfriend, Ryan. You mind explaining why a mountain of Ethan's crap is stacked outside her door? I almost laughed. Why don't you ask Lara or Ethan? They've been doing plenty behind your back. That's not he started, but I cut him off. Check Ethan's messages. His iPad was still signed into my Wi-Fi. I saw enough screenshots to last me a lifetime. Silence. Then a muttered curse before he hung up. It was only a matter of time before Ethan himself called again. This time his tone wasn't pleading. It was twisted into something smug, rehearsed. Viv, it wasn't what you think he began. It was a test. A test. My laugh was sharp, humorless. If you really loved me, you'd fight for me. You'd be jealous. That's what women do when they care. You failed, Viv. You didn't fight. The audacity almost stunned me into silence. Almost. You wanted a dog, Ethan. I'm not one. I don't chase, I replace. His voice cracked, then no longer smooth. Replace me with who? I let the pause hang, then delivered the line like a dagger. I already texted Marcus. Coffee tomorrow. The silence on his end was delicious. Marcus, the one man Ethan always accused me of liking too much. The man he called a threat just for existing in my orbit. Truthfully, Marcus and I had never been more than friends, but Ethan didn't need to know that. "You wouldn't," he whispered. "Watch me," I replied. That's when the campaign began. By evening, my phone lit up with alerts. Ethan had plastered Facebook with a post. "My ex is unstable. She threw me out on the street. She's abusive. Don't believe her lies." Classic deflection. But I was prepared. With one screenshot, his text about Lara, his late-night emojis, his whispered promises, I sank his narrative before it even had legs. His own friends messaged me privately, some apologizing, some saying they were done with him. Even Mia, my friend, who had once defended him, wrote, "I'm so sorry, Viv. He's toxic. Stay strong." By nightfall, Ethan's post was gone, deleted, but the damage was done not to me but to him. And still he couldn't stop. At 2 a.m., another message came from him, this one almost pitiful. I was setting up a future for us. Lara meant nothing. "You'll regret leaving me." I stared at the words, my jaw tightening. The lies were endless. But deep in my gut, I knew the truth. Ethan wasn't just flailing. He was plotting his next move, and men like Ethan didn't go quietly. The morning after his smear campaign fizzled, I thought I'd finally get some quiet. I was wrong. At 9:15 a.m., my phone buzzed with a fraud alert. Someone had tried using the emergency credit card I'd canceled weeks ago. Declined. 10 minutes later, another alert, a credit application filed in my name. Ethan. My pulse didn't spike. My hands didn't shake. Instead, a chilling steadiness washed over me. I called the bank, confirmed the attempt, and then dialed the non-emergency police line. Attempted identity theft is a felony, Ms. Cross, the detective told me, after I filed the report. "Would you like to press charges?" "I'll think about it," I said, though inside I already knew the answer. By noon, the consequences multiplied. My LinkedIn pinged. Ethan's boss had viewed my profile. A message followed shortly after. "Hi, Vivian. Odd question. Has everything been okay with Ethan? He listed you as his emergency contact. Also noticed a salary advance request with your name mentioned." I didn't sugarcoat it. We broke up 2 days ago. He stayed overnight with his coworker, Lara. They've both been calling in sick. There was a pause. Then interesting coincidence. "We have a strict fraternization policy. Thank you." By 3:00 p.m., Ethan called from an unknown number, his voice ragged with fury. "You got me fired." "No," I said calmly. "You got yourself fired by dating a coworker and lying about it." "I wasn't dating her," he snapped. "Your boss seems to think otherwise." "How am I supposed to live without a job, without money?" "Maybe Lara can support you," I replied, sweet as poison. "Oh wait, she got fired too." His rage spilled into incoherence before the line went dead. Later that evening, another call, this time from his mother. Her voice was softer now, almost begging. "Vivian, please. He's learned his lesson. Don't press charges. You'll ruin his life." I pressed the phone closer, staring at the quiet apartment around me, free of his presence. "Darlene," I said evenly, "he tried to steal my identity. Twice. He ruined his own life. I just won't carry the blame for it." There was a long silence, then the sound of her muffled sobs before she hung up. For the first time since this began, I felt something close to satisfaction. Not because Ethan was crumbling, but because the mask had finally fallen. Everyone else could see him now, the selfish boy who played games until he lost. Still in the back of my mind, I knew cornered men rarely retreat. They lash out. And I hadn't seen the worst of Ethan yet. Saturday afternoon. I was making coffee when a deep rumble shook the street outside. Through the blinds, I saw a U-Haul truck parked crookedly at the curb. Ethan. He wasn't alone. 2 of his cousins, Rodney and Derek, climbed out of the cab, muscles flexing under cheap tank tops. Ethan strutted behind them like a general marching into battle. My heart didn't race. I'd been waiting for this. I opened the door just enough to watch. Rodney was already fiddling with the lock, Derek hauling patio chairs toward the truck. Ethan stood with arms crossed, smirking like he'd already won. That smirk faltered when the front door opened wider and my brother Noah stepped out beside me. Noah, broad-shouldered, ex-college wrestler, the kind of man who could silence a room with a look. And then Camilla, my best friend, appeared with her phone already recording. "Afternoon, gentlemen," Noah said coolly. "Planning to rob my sister in broad daylight." Rodney froze the screwdriver, slipping from his hand. Derek put down the chairs. Ethan's jaw tightened. "This is my place too, Noah. I have rights." "No, you don't," I cut in. My voice carried louder than I expected. "Every piece of your junk was delivered to Lara's door a week ago. Remember, that doesn't matter. I lived here. I'm moving back in." Camilla stepped forward, camera steady in her hand. "You mean breaking and entering?" "Pretty sure that does matter." And then, as if the universe enjoyed theatrics, a familiar voice called from the sidewalk. "Gentlemen," said Officer Torres, my friend Carlos, flashing his badge. "Care to explain why you're attempting burglary?" The cousins paled. Rodney muttered something about being misinformed and backed toward the truck. Derek followed, muttering apologies. Ethan's composure cracked, his face twisted desperation bleeding through arrogance. Vivian, you can't do this to me. I have nowhere else to go. I folded my arms steady as stone. You did this to yourself, Ethan. Every choice you made led you here. You love me, he shouted, voice breaking. No, I said. I love the man I thought you were. That man doesn't exist. Carlos stepped closer. Ethan Harper, we've already got a report of attempted identity theft in your name. Care to add trespassing to the list? Ethan blanched. His eyes darted between us, Noah's glare, Camilla's phone, Carlos's badge. He realized the battle was lost. But he still tried one last pitiful card. Viv, please, I can change. Just one more chance. I almost pitied him. Almost. You had your chance the night you chose Lara, and the night you forged my name, and every moment you lied instead of telling the truth. The silence stretched until finally Carlos pulled out his radio. Dispatch. I've got a suspect here. That broke him. Ethan bolted toward the U-Haul, but the cousins had already abandoned him, driving off without him. Carlos caught his arm easily. Ethan didn't even resist. As they led him away, his voice cracked over his shoulder. You'll regret this, Vivian. You'll regret losing me. I held the door frame and spoke clearly enough for the whole block to hear. No, Ethan, I'll regret ever letting you in. The U-Haul disappeared down the street, and with it, the last of his power over me. For the first time in months, my apartment was quiet. Truly quiet. And in that silence, I felt something bloom peace. The week after Ethan's arrest was strangely calm, like the air after a hurricane. My apartment, once heavy with his presence, felt lighter. Sunlight streamed in more warmly, the silence no longer suffocating but comforting. I spent the first few mornings relearning simple pleasures. Making coffee without wondering if he'd drained the last of the beans, playing music at full volume without his complaints stretching across the bed without running into his restless body. Freedom was quiet, and quiet was beautiful. Still, there were echoes, his mother leaving voicemails that oscillated between begging and blaming old acquaintances, trying to stir gossip. I let them all go to voicemail. I owed them nothing. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Hey, want to grab coffee this week? No pressure. I stared at the text for a long moment, my chest tightening, not with dread this time, but with something gentler. Hope. When we met, it wasn't dramatic. No fireworks, no cinematic soundtrack, just two people sitting across from each other, sipping coffee, laughing at small things. And for once, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. Marcus asked questions, listened, never glanced at his phone when I spoke. The simplicity of it felt healing. We've taken it slow since then. Cautious, but steady. And maybe, just maybe, I'll let myself believe that real partnership exists, not the kind built on smoke and manipulation, but on respect. One night, I walked through my apartment, glass of wine in hand, pausing by the door where Ethan once pounded his fists, screaming for entry. The wood was smooth again, repainted. The ghosts were gone. I thought of my father's words, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Ethan showed me, and I believed him finally. So when he texted me his last words before the arrest, "You'll never find anyone like me," I smiled. Because he was right. I never will. And thank God for that.